Great turmoil in Russia. Russian soldiers executed by their own friends. An army's greatest need for the victory is trust. Groups of people who do not trust each other and claim to be an army are just unskilled crowds. It is not possible for these crowded groups to bring a great victory to a country. They can only delay a major defeat. Critical days continue to unfold the Russian-Ukraine war. The Ukrainian army's counterattack continues fearlessly at many points, especially on the Zaporizhia front line. According to local reports, Russia's losses are quite heavy. However, the Russian Federation is making efforts to hide this. The truth is somehow emerging. Recently, a scandalous incident in the Russian army has reported. Moreover, this happened during Putin's propaganda work. So, what is a scandalous event? Let's take a look at the latest developments. You can subscribe to our channel and turn on notification so as not to miss our detailed map analysis and current news about the Russia-Ukraine war. The Pioneer reports. With the start of the Ukrainian counterattack, Russia began to panic, because Russia thought from the very beginning that Ukraine was unlikely to launch such a counterattack. Ukrainian troops, advancing at many points along the front line, managed to liberate approximately 132 square kilometers of Russian-occupied territory. Russia's casualties in the clashes during these liberation operations were considerable. Many soldiers, fearing confrontation with Ukrainian soldiers, left the front line and fled during the clashes. The escape of these soldiers reveals the difficult situation Russia is in. Russian soldiers who fled the front line were executed by their own friends. Recently, a video was shared on a Telegram channel. In the video, Russian soldiers fleeing from the Zaporizhia front line were seen fleeing in an empty fields. However, as Russian soldiers fled the front, they faced a great danger. This danger was the Russian barrier forces. Russian barrier forces are troops deployed very close to the front line. The purpose of these units is to stop Russian soldiers fleeing from the front line, send them back to the hotline of conflict. The barrier forces have a remarkable initiative in this regard. If the fleeing soldiers refuse to return, the barrier forces are given the initiative to execute them. In the affirmation video, we see Russian barrier troops confronting Russian soldiers fleeing in the fields. Soldiers fleeing the Ukrainian counteroffensive raised their hands as they encountered Russian barrier forces. However, the Russian barrier forces tried to send these soldiers to the front line. The fleeing soldiers disobeyed this order and were executed by the barrier forces. This barrier forces strategy employed by the Russian army is called "no one can turn back." This is not the first time this strategy has been used by the Russian army. Years ago, Stalin, the leader of Soviet Union, allowed Soviet soldiers to be executed by barrier forces if they fled the front line. Since Putin sees himself as the heir to the Soviet Union, he is not ashamed to carry out the same actions as Stalin. Russian leader Vladimir Putin was in a meeting with Russian war supporters and Russian pro-war bloggers when footage of the execution of deserters was shared. The main agenda of the meeting was to increase support for the war through propaganda. At this meeting, Putin renewed his emphasis on the World War III to be pro-war bloggers. However, bloggers are not very sympathetic to the Putin's claim, because according to them, Russia, despite making these threats, is not strong enough to handle a large-scale world war. And what power it has largely lost in Ukraine. Prigozhin, the leader of the Wagner Group, also made a statement full of threats after this video was shared. Prigozhin said that no one has the right to run away from the war and that anyone who intends to do so will be killed. The number of soldiers fleeing the war in the Russian army is increasing day by day. Due to the barrier forces mentioned at the beginning of this report, many Russian soldiers do not choose to flee to their home countries. It makes more sense to go to Ukraine instead. But there is a third way. Recently, an interview with a Russian soldier who fled to Norway was published in the press. According to the allegations, the soldiers, a member of the Wagner Group, deserted on footage from his unit one night. The escape route of the deserter, who traveled a long distance, was full of dangerous situations. Therefore, this soldier preferred to hide during the day while continuing his march at night. The deserter managed to overcome many dangers along his dangerous escape route, and say that he was about to cross the Norwegian borders when he narrowly escaped from Russian soldiers. Frontline soldiers are not only ones fleeing the war. According to recent reports, the number of people leaving Russia has also increased considerably. The new route of Russian citizens who have left Russia in recent days is Thailand. According to allegations, the number of people of Russian origin will have won the right to obtain citizenship in Thailand have increased considerably. According to the latest report of Phuket Airport in Thailand, more than 250,000 Russians came to Thailand in just 3 months. Russian citizens investing here are enjoying the comfort of being away from the war. According to many Russian citizens, the Thai adventure is only temporary for them. They believe they can return to a free Russia without Putin. The only way is for Ukraine to win this war. The Kremlin is considering a number of new measures to replace soldiers lost in the front line and deserters. Among these measures is a relaxation of the requirements to become a soldier. If the Kremlin takes such a decision, the age of conscription in Russia is expected to be lowered even further. However, this decision could lead to some new problems. As you know, following Russia's mobilization plan, many young Russians of military age fled the country. However, Russian youth who were below to the draft age considered themselves lucky for a while. The Kremlin's new military conscription decision is expected to have a major impact on this young population. In such a situation, we may face a new migration movement from Russia to other countries. The departure of Russian youth will not only affect the Russian army, but also the Russian economy. The departure of young people who are the most productive labor force will cause many disruption in the production mechanism. In other words, the Kremlin's project to compensate for military losses may lead to even greater loss. With the start of Ukraine's counteroffensive, Russian military losses have increased astronomically. According to the latest reports, the losses of the Russian army are as follows: 222,000 soldiers, 4,006 tanks, 7,771 armored vehicles, 3,920 artillery systems, 615 multiple rocket launcher batteries, 375 air defense systems, 314 fighter jets, 306 helicopters, 3,428 drones, 1,214 cruise missiles, 18 warships, 6,667 combat vehicles and fuel tanks, 539 special equipments. What do you think? Do you think Russia's use of barrier forces could lead to a new crisis? Will Ukraine's counteroffensive increase the number of army desertions? What measures does Russia plan to take to prevent desertions? Will bloggers' propaganda make the Russian public support the war? We care about your opinions. Please share them with us.